I'm ready to fit this vise into the apron of the bench, and I am ready for it because this is an old vise that I've had for a long time, and I've carried it with me, and it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. I wanted a decent vise. It's an old record vise. One of the things I've got to do is map out exactly where I want it on my apron, and then I have to be conscious that the thickness of the bench top is not 4 inches thick, which is this distance from here to here. So I've got to put some shims inside here, some packings on the underside of my bench, but I'm going to cut the opening 4 1/8 of an inch deep. This is 4 inches from here, and I want my vise 1/8 of an inch below the rim of the bench, below the top edge of the bench. So I've got to map that out, put it in place. What I'm basically going to do is give myself a little bit of space, but I'm going to map out the shape here. I'm going to cut this area here to these rough shape. I'm going to leave a gap. I don't want it tight because you have to take your vise in and out sometimes for various reasons, not the least of which is you want to take the weight off the bench if you're transporting it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to map that out and cut the hole. What I'm going to do is drill the hole first, somewhere in the space where I've mapped it out, and then I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut the shape out. And then I'm going to offer the vise into the opening, put these shims in place just to check that I am 1/8 of an inch below the surface. If not, I'll just add another shim or a packing inside there. So let me get this out of the way. I've got 2 coats. I think I mentioned this before, but I think I've got a couple of coats of the water-based finish on here just to stop dirt from the vise transferring to the wood, so I can wipe it off. It's a good wipe clean surface that I've got. Flipping it, take great care. If you've got somebody that can help you, get some help. So I'm going to pull this on my own, turn this on the blanket like this, and I'm going to drop it onto this one. This is purely to cushion the bench. Watch your blanket doesn't slip, and make sure you're counteracting the force that is going against you here, like that. And I'm good to go with the mapping out now. I think I'm happy with that. So I need a pen and a square. My tools are a little bit disarrayed here, but I'm going to live with it. I might use a pen so you can see. Maybe I don't need to. So I've already taken the screws out. That inside apron, the one that formed the step down, I've taken a couple of the screws out because I don't really need them. The glue has now gone off. And what I've got is the area doesn't have any screws. There's nothing worse on a jigsaw blade than a couple of hardened screws. So I'm going to bring up a line from the inside of my leg here. I want to bring a line that's just going to show me the edge of my vise that's going to go into this opening. You will find that this is going to impact the wedge inside, but not compromise it, so it'll be just fine. So I'm setting this now, the distance from here to the stock of my square, to 4 1/8. Like that. So that's giving me the 1/8 distance. And I know that my vise, I'm going to check it though, I know that my vise is 9 inches wide in this case. They vary, so don't take it off mine, take it off the one you've got. I've got a couple of flanges here. Those are the better quality vices. They're hard to get now. So I am wrong. So this is 3.5 inches deep. So I need to add, I'm glad I checked that. I'm adding 1/8 for extra clearance. That's funny. Yeah, just add that little bit. I was so sure that was 4 inches. Oh, I know what it is. It's 4 inches from here to the top of the ways on the vise. So I'm coming across here now, and I'm going to come 9 inches, which I better check myself, hadn't I? There, I've got 9 inches. So I wouldn't go 9 tight. I would go 9 1/16 or something like that. And I'm going to give myself a width here. So now it's just mapping it out. What's the lowest point on here? On the underside of this one. This is not a quick release vise, so I'm happy about that because it means that I don't have any drop downs like you normally do on a vise, on a quick release vise. So just roughly, that's the depth from the top here plus 1/8. So I'm going to add that 1/8, and I think that is correct. Set this again and pull a line here, and then I've got to eyeball because I've got this little recess here, this indent here, so I've got to come down from there. That distance is going to be that, what I thought before is 4 and a little bit, 4 1/8. So I've got my, if I come down 4 inches, it gives me a little bit of space there. Same on this side. And I'm going to just give myself this reference here, like this. And that's basically taking care of this thickness in here. So I'm eyeballing the whole time. I'm looking for this part here. So is this centered? Not necessarily. It may not be centered. So I have to guesstimate some things. It does look like it's 2.5 inches in to the bottom. So find the center. So I've got 4.5 is the middle. Come down this face here. So there's the middle of my vise. There's my bottom line. And I've got 4 inches, so I'm going to come 2 1/8 each side, give it a little bit of space. 4 1/4. That's a 20th of an inch there. So that there. So now I have to just guesstimate what this is. I'm guessing this is 45 degrees. It looks like 45 degrees. So I'm going to come up from there as near as I can, from that intersection here to here. And it does look like that marries the same as that area there. So I feel pretty content that I'm good. So I'm going to swing in here with a round and with a round. I don't think I'm quite symmetrical, but I think I'm near enough. This comes out here. So what I do now is I drill the hole, use the jigsaw, and go all the way through. Any size hole will do as long as it takes the jigsaw blade. And you can drill more than one hole if you want to. I'm drilling away from this edge so I don't get any tear out. So I'm going somewhere here. And I'm ready to bring in my jigsaw. Plug in. And start jigging. I'm getting a little bit of tear on that side, so I'm going to take a knife. Can you see that fray in there? I'm going to try and cut that so it doesn't fray, even though it's underneath the vise. Very close. Better. And so there's only inside here we've got these two flanges on here, which is quite unusual in vices these days. So I've got them marked there because I can see the blue paint off the flanges, so I'm going to cut those by just pencil lining a line here and here. And I'll just cut this down with with probably a tenon saw, just cut those walls out and then chisel out the waste wood in between. That means I'm ready then to put my packing underneath inside here. So this goes on the underside, it lines up with this edge here. I screw these to the underside of the bench, and then I've got holes to drill here. Ignore these two holes on this side because you can't get to them to put those bolts in. You don't need them, you just need these two here. Combine that with two that go through this front part of the vise and it's perfectly solid. So that's what I'm going to do next. Get everything lined up, bolt the vise on, and that's the next stage in this. There's not much else to tell you about it. I've got my vise installed and I'm very happy about it. This is getting so excited. This is my version of extending the vise. So what I've got to do is put these vise jaws in. Very simple, but I want something that's so rock solid that it doesn't sway or move or anything else. So I'm taking as I always have 2 blocks that go either side of the vise that extend the width, because I like my vices to be quite wide but not overly wide. So these are going to come flush with this outside edge here, or with the top edge, and my vise jaw is now sticking off the face of the back jaw by about 1/4 of an inch, because that's the head of the screw that's protruding past the surface. I've got these where I want them. So this one is lined up with this one. So I'm going to just eyeball these for the edges. If anything, I want this slightly above, because I'm more than happy to plane it down. So now I'm indenting the face. This is plywood, but it's the special plywood used for the bottom of vans for extra grip. So these jaws make great grip. So when this goes in, this what looks like a padded surface go face to face, and they hold the material you're working with very nicely. There are my indents there. So I've got a bit here, just a spade bit or a paddle bit, depends on which side of the pond you live on. This can go in here. Get my paddle bit right in the middle of that eye. And I only want to go deep enough to take the head and the washer part of this screw. I think that's it. So it'll seat fully against the back face of the back jaw. Or should I say the inside face of the back jaw. There we go. This comes out. And it should drop. And I've left it, I made the hole just slightly oversized so I could slip. So that's it. So I can slip and slide it to get it lined up. So those go there. This now comes out. This is going to be my fixed jaw. This is where it bumps up against here. This one will move in and out a little bit. So I'm going to drill and drive a screw into this one. So I love the idea that we're now using a vise. So anywhere in the middle of this one will work. Oh, already loaded with this one. Make sure that will go fine. So I am going to leave this just a hair bigger. What I'm going to do in addition is add some double-sided tape to both sides of this block, because this will stop anything from slipping and sliding later on. It makes a big difference. Now I put my knife down again somewhere. That will help keep it in place. So I'm going to put this on after I've drilled this and put this on. Double-sided tape. Okay. Nice and clean surface. So I've got this a hair past the surface because I can plane it down afterwards. Is that the one I want? Keep it snug. Get it nice and flush. This one I'm going to move in place in a minute. So now my jaw goes in. there. I'm eyeballing it for the top of my bench top. And what I'm really using this, I've got this registered against this edge. I'm just trying to align it, that's all. Make sure it's lined up properly. So that's that. I've got it too tight. This is so worth it, this. You're going to love what we're doing with this, I'm sure. Because it makes the vise so solid. I'm going to use my knife now to establish this exact position. Pre-drill that hole. This can be anywhere in here. Now I'm going to put 2 screws either side of those first 2 screws. And these screws are going to go all the way through into my bench top. So make sure you are aligned just above. Feels great. And you can always take these off if you need to replace them in a year or 5 years' time, 10 years' time. Okay, this one, I've got the rough side facing the other rough side. When I say rough, it's not really rough, it's just not smooth. I don't really want smooth, particularly. This is going here, flush with this one. I love that sound, don't you? You can tell I'm feeling a little more ebullient now, because in a few minutes, hopefully, I'll be standing this fellow up. And that's one of the most exciting things when you build a bench. I built so many of these, but it's never got old. I've never not enjoyed it. I want to make sure I don't drill through this, which I would if I stayed at that setting. Right in the middle. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time now adding some double-sided tape to this. I'm going to back these two screws out on the back piece, because I'm going to put double-sided across that as well, because it makes such a difference to the slippage. I doubt whether these would slip, it's up to you, but I'm going for it. I'm using these screws because they're nice and strong. They're not as brittle as the hardened steel ones. Okay, I feel very happy today, because this piece is, I'm going to tap this. And cinch it, and I think that that is pretty much immovable. I want to get this out of the way and stand this up for you. Feel a kind of urgency about it. This is so exciting for me, because I've got reasons for building this bench over any other, I think, really. So I've got to stand this up, this beast, so the best way. Now I've got the vise in, I'm thinking about the weights of the vise. Uh-oh, that didn't sound good. Oh, it was a piece of wood, it's fine. So I'm going to stand him up. Just like I did before. I'm going to use the weight of the vise to my advantage, I hope. And who knows? So up this goes. Yeah. Now then, before it was fairly equal weight. Now I've got a 40-pound vise on the other side. We'll see. Yep, we're fine. Boing. Well, what do you think of that? That is a very beefy, wonderful bench. And I've got my vise fitted. I'm very happy with it. This is an amazing bench. I designed this as a bridge. This is to get machine-only woodworkers into hand tools. So what I've done, I came up with a method of making it where you can make it by machine. You don't need any hand tools particularly for this. You could do it all by machine, a bandsaw, a couple of other little bits and bobs, and you have got a bench. So this is to get you into woodworking. It's my bridge bench. It's a plywood bench. It gets you from machining to hand tool woodworking. The first thing you need is the third hand, which is the workbench. You've got a bench. Now you're going to join us on the journey with hand tools that are going to complement everything you do for the rest of your life. It's a very solid bench. You'll love it.